Where in the world do you find innovation? Well, according to this year's Global Innovation Index produced by INSEAD and the World Intellectual Property Organization, the top 3 countries are Switzerland, Sweden, and Singapore. But with today's seismic shifts in financial markets, the global economy, and technology, it's important for all countries to embrace innovation. Well, joining us next on INSEAD Knowledge to tell us a little bit more are INSEAD Professor Sumitra Dutta and Francis Gurry, who is the Director General of the World Intellectual Property Organization. Gentlemen, thank you for joining us on INSEAD Knowledge.
Thank you. Thank you.
So what do the top 3 countries have that the others don't?
You see remarkable consistency amongst the countries that come in the top 15. So what you see is a common set of strong enablers in these markets. You also see a fairly strong degree of linkages across different elements. So the whole ecosystem connecting the different innovation actors sort of functions more seamlessly and more effectively in these economies.
How did the BRIC countries fare, or Africa? There's been a lot of talk about the potential here. There's been a lot of investment. What did you find?
On the whole, the BRIC economies are doing very well. And China is ranked very high, and that's the highest ranked of the BRIC economies. But clearly, a cause for concern is that some of the BRIC economies are showing signs of slippage in the overall innovation index rankings. India is one example of that, and even other economies like Brazil and Russia, they show some weaknesses that are more structural in these countries. If these BRIC economies do not pick up and realize innovation potential, the global recovery could perhaps be threatened, or in fact, the global economy may not reach its full potential.
Well, as far as Africa is concerned, of course, it's 53 countries, so it's rather difficult to generalize about a lot of them. But there are certain common characteristics, and those common characteristics are, of course, they're very low income for the most part, exception perhaps of South Africa. Very low income, resource-based, primary resource-based. So innovation has not been its #1 priority up until now. There are life and death priorities for many of these countries. Most of the LDCs are located in Africa. And I think the challenge is a challenge of a slow, long-term building of capacity to innovate, and a slow, long-term building of capacity to add value to the resource base that exists. And adding that value is going to come through innovation. Francis,
why is the World Intellectual Property Organization involved in this index?
Because the reason we have intellectual property is innovation. You know, broadly speaking, innovation costs resources to produce, human and financial resources. But once it's produced, it's easily appropriated by anyone. It's what we call a private good in production and a public good in consumption. And so to encourage people to make the investment in innovation, intellectual property grants the exclusive right of appropriation over the fruits of the innovation for a limited period of time. So the whole purpose of intellectual property is innovation or cultural creativity in the case of copyright. So this is why we're here, to reinforce that intellectual property is not just something that's there as an end in itself, it's a means to an end. If you like, we're called the World Intellectual Property Organization, but that's a bit like calling the World Health Organization the World Vaccines Organization. You know, you have a vaccine for a reason. It's painful, and you have intellectual property for a reason, and the reason is innovation.
What role does innovation play today in the global economy, especially given the recession?
I think it's fundamental. It's absolutely fundamental. I think the relationship between innovation and economic growth has been clear for 60 years now, at least, and innovation will be increasingly the battlefield for competition. It'll be the way in which individual enterprises, industries, and countries distinguish themselves. It's a source of, as a source of economic growth, it's very important now as the world turns to look to sources of growth to overcome the current economic malaise, that it does focus attention on this area of value-added creation. Take any of the new industries that we are used to now. The IT industry, ICT industry didn't really exist 30 years ago. And think of the employment, the economic growth that has been generated out of essentially innovation.
Francis and Sumitra, thank you very much for being with us on INSEAD Knowledge.
Thank you.
Shane.